Hi, this is Jeff West, and I'd like to give you an overview and a demonstration of the WebLogic Maven plugin that was included in WebLogic 10.3.4. For those of you who may not be familiar with Maven, I wanted to give a quick overview of that tool. Maven is a popular open source project that is used for a large variety of software development lifecycle tasks. You can use it to define your project structure and hierarchy, manage the build process for your applications, define and manage dependencies, and much, much more. There's also thousands of plugins that you can use with Maven to address concerns at each of the major project lifecycle stages. So there's plugins for testing, there's plugins for deployment, pre-deployment activities, code generation using JAX-B or JAX-WS, for example. So there's a lot you can do with Maven. It's also a very mature project from Apache and is used in a lot of enterprise projects. And it's currently on version 3, which was released in 2010. So, who uses Maven? It's widely used across both private enterprise applications in addition to many open source projects. And you can see some of the open source projects that are listed here. And I believe Maven actually uses Maven to build the Maven project as well. So it's very popular, very widespread, and very useful as well. Let's take a look at some of the primary Maven concepts. A project is the center of the Maven universe, and Maven uses a project object model, or POM, to declare and describe a project, its dependencies, and behaviors using group IDs, artifacts, and versions. It also allows project inheritance for ease of configuration and project aggregation to group several projects into a multi-module project. Maven is very useful in that you can import a Maven project directly into many IDEs, making it a very portable framework. For example, if you're using Maven to describe your project, you can have developers using IntelliJ, Eclipse, JDeveloper, and NetBeans all side by side. Maven also advocates convention over configuration. There is a standard directory layout, so Maven knows where to find the source files and application descriptors. It also has archive packaging behaviors out of the box for things like jars, EJB jars, wars, and ears. It is also centered around a well-defined project lifecycle that we'll cover later on. You will also find that plugins are central to Maven's utility as a build framework. With plugins, you can tie additional custom behaviors into the project lifecycle. There are thousands of plugins to choose from, and if you don't find one that suits your needs, you can create your own. Plugins can either be tied into the project lifecycle events, or they can be executed manually by specifying the goal that you want to execute. Another key aspect of Maven is the ability to declare and manage dependencies for projects. By using a group ID, artifact ID, and version to define or declare a project or dependency, Maven can search local and remote repositories and include the dependencies in the class path for building, packaging, and deploying your projects into a container. If there are dependencies that are accessible on one of the many public Maven repositories, this also allows you to ship your POM and source code without having to ship the dependencies with your project. A Maven repository is a library that holds build artifacts and dependencies. There are remote repositories and local repositories. The local repository is a cache of locally built artifacts and dependencies downloaded from remote repositories. Remote repositories are remote servers that are hosting a library of dependencies or plugins. There are many publicly accessible remote repositories, and you can also create an enterprise Maven repository that you can host behind a corporate firewall for internal use. When you specify a dependency, you include a group ID, artifact ID, and version number. Maven uses this information to look for the dependency in your local repository. If it is not found, Maven will look in the default remote repository in addition to any other repositories that you may have declared in your POM file or local Maven configuration. One example of a public remote repository is the java.net repository, which maintains dependencies related to the Java standards such as Java EE and JAX. Maven is based around the concept of a well-defined build lifecycle that has a set of phases. In order to use Maven to manage the lifecycle of your project, you only need to learn a small number of commands since all of the configuration information is stored in the POM. There are 3 built-in lifecycles: default, clean, and site. The default lifecycle handles your project deployment. The clean lifecycle handles project cleaning, while the site lifecycle handles the creation of your project's site documentation. Each of these has a distinct set of phases, and each phase has a set of goals that perform actual tasks. You can extend the default behavior of the Maven lifecycle phases and goals by using plugins and tying them to the specific lifecycle events. For example, when using the WebLogic Maven plugin, it is most likely that you will tie it to the deploy phase of the default lifecycle. There are also Maven plugins that are implicitly tied to Maven lifecycle events and executed depending on the packaging of a project. For example, there's a Maven ear plugin that is tied to the package phase of the default lifecycle for projects that are configured with ear packaging. These are the most commonly specified phases of the default Maven lifecycle. It includes the major steps in a project lifecycle, from validating a configuration through compiling, packaging, and testing, and on to verifying an application and deploying it. When you specify a specific phase, it executes all of the phases up to and including the specified phase. Next, let's take a look at the work that we have done to integrate WebLogic Server and Maven. In WebLogic Server 11G R1 Patch Set 3, Oracle began including an official Maven plugin to perform application deployment and lifecycle operations. It is composed of the WebLogic deployer, the WebLogic client, and has a Maven mojo that defines the configuration of the plugin. The WebLogic Maven plugin supports the deployment of artifacts built using Maven directly from Maven, so you don't have to use the command line deployer utilities or the admin console. In addition, you can tie it to the deploy phase of the default Maven lifecycle such that your artifacts are automatically deployed when you execute the Maven lifecycle. In addition to deploying, redeploying, and undeploying applications, you can also use the plugin to list the applications that are deployed and start, stop, and update applications that are already deployed. In order to use the WebLogic Maven plugin, you must generate and install the plugin using a WebLogic 10.3.4 or later distribution. Since WebLogic is a commercially licensed product, the plugin is not currently made available via a public Maven repository. Next, I'd like to show you how to generate and install the WebLogic Maven plugin. First, you have to be in the WebLogic server lib directory. Then you will use the WebLogic Jar Builder utility specifying the profile of the WebLogic Maven plugin. This will generate a jar file that you install into your local Maven repository, specifying certain metadata such that you can use it in your POM files or reference it in your POM files. It's necessary for us to do it this way because WebLogic is licensed software, and therefore we cannot put it into a publicly accessible Maven repository for free use. Next, you need to install the jar file into your Maven repository. Maven offers this ability using the install file goal, and here we specify the jar file name, which we just generated, the group ID, the artifact ID, packaging, and the version for the plugin. And those are all the fields that you will use to access it from your Maven POM files. So it's fairly straightforward to generate and install the jar file into your Maven plugin or Maven repository. After you generate and install the plugin, you'll need to configure it in a POM before you can use it. Next, let's take a look at a simple POM file where I am declaring and using the WebLogic Maven plugin. The POM file, as we mentioned before, is the central definition of a project within Maven. It opens with a project tag, and under the Build Plugins tag, this is where you define one or more plugins. Here you'll see the definition for the WebLogic plugin, where we're using the group ID, artifact ID, and version that we specified when we installed the plugin into our local repository. In addition, you can specify configuration parameters in your POM file that the Maven plugin will use. Here we're specifying the admin URL, the credentials to log into the server, the source of the application that we want to deploy, the name of the application, and the targets where we want to deploy the application. In addition, you can specify advanced parameters such as remote and upload. If you've used the command line WebLogic Deployer utility, you'll notice that these are the same options that you can specify for the command line utility. The same utility that's used for the command line is also used by the Maven plugin in order to deploy applications from Maven. Next, let's see the Maven plugin in action for this simple use case. I'm executing it from the same directory where I'd previously had saved the POM file that was reviewed. And here we can see that it was successful. It's a lightweight EAR file using Java EE, so it took about 3 seconds to deploy. It's very useful, very handy for executing from the command line. You can also specify command line parameters to use instead of specifying the configuration for the plugin. For example, if you wanted to specify a different admin URL or different targets or a different name for the application, you can specify those on the command line. Next, let's take a look at some advanced uses for the WebLogic Server Maven plugin. Some of the more advanced use cases for the WebLogic Maven plugin include configuring deployment parameters using Maven properties, so they don't have to be specified when the plugin is executed, managing deployment to multiple environments using Maven plugins, so you can deploy to your local environment, as well as easily deploying to dev test environments, and binding the plugin to Maven execution phases for automatic deployment operations, so you can deploy your application, run integration tests, and undeploy your application all with one command. The example POM file that we showed earlier was pretty simple and pretty straightforward. However, the chances of you actually using it in that way on your project are slim to none, and I wouldn't really recommend that you do that. That was just for an example only. What I want to do is show you another example that is a little bit more complex and more in line with the way that you would use this on an actual project. And you can find this code. It's downloadable from the Oracle Parcel Service example application on samplecode.oracle.com. So for this example, I've created a POM file called common deployable for my project. In this file, I'm specifying multiple profiles that can be specified at runtime and change the destination and properties that are used for the WebLogic Maven plugin. For example, this profile I have called deploy local, and it's enabled by default. So by default, I want to deploy applications to my local environment unless I specify a different profile. So here I'm specifying the admin URL, username and password, the targets, and remote and upload being true so I can keep a consistent behavior. What this allows me to do is specify other profiles that I can optionally use to deploy my applications to different locations or different environments, for example. So here is a managed server that I have, or as a managed machine that I have on the Oracle network. So sometimes I do my testing there. So if I want to do that, I can enable this profile. I also have an additional laptop at home that I use for testing, which is a Dell laptop, and I can specify the deploy to Dell if I want to deploy to that machine for testing. Then, if you look down at the plugin for the configuration section, I'm using parameters or properties, not hard-coded strings, for the configuration parameters. In addition, I am binding the execution of this plugin to specific Maven lifecycle events. So for the deploy phase within Maven, I'm specifying that I want to execute the deploy goal for this Maven plugin. So that means I don't have to specify explicitly that I want to run the Maven WebLogic plugin. It's done automatically when I execute the Maven deploy goal. In addition, I'm defining the plugin under the plugin management section of my POM file. And each module or each application or project that I want to deploy will extend this POM file or specify it as its parent. That being the case, I don't have to specify all of these configuration parameters for each one of the applications or projects that I want to deploy. So let's take a look at one of those POM files so you can see what I mean. So in this example, for this POM file, I am creating an ear file that I want to deploy. In my plugin section, I'm specifying the Maven ear plugin that creates my ear that I want to deploy. Then I'm specifying the WebLogic Maven plugin here. You'll notice that I don't have all of the extra parameters and the version number specified in the child POM because it's being inherited from the common deployable POM, and the parameters are specified here. So this is very useful. It means I can make a change to this section, the parent POM file, and have it take effect on all of the applications that are extending it, or all the child POM files. Also, chances are you'll probably be running Maven from your IDE, and so I wanted to just give you an example of how that can work as well. So for this example, I have a top-level POM, which is Oracle Parcel Service, with multiple modules specified for the parent project. And if we look down the tree, we'll see that each child project has a few other projects. So there's nested Maven projects throughout this example. By running clean and deploy on the top-level project, I can build and deploy all of the applications for this project, or all the modules for this project, to my WebLogic cluster in one fell swoop. So it makes it a pretty good platform if you want to clean and redeploy all of your applications or all the modules for specific applications with one command. So here we saw that it was cleaning, and now it's in the process of deploying, and then moving on to the next module as well. So this is before the Maven plugin came along. I didn't use Maven a lot, but this forced me to look at it, and what I found is this really has helped make me more productive, because as I make a change in the IDE, I can simply run the Maven deploy goal for that module and then run a test case or do some UI testing or see what the behavior was resulting from that change. So it's very useful, and I found it very beneficial and productivity enhancing when I'm doing my application development. You can find more information about WebLogic online on the Oracle Technology Network or YouTube. We also have a Twitter account and Facebook account, and we are interested in your feedback. Thanks.